Hello, everybody. It's a great group today, man. It's great to be back with you. I'm really happy to be here and feel privileged and honored to be re-invited. This is actually my third visit, for those of you who have not heard me talk before, and it seems like every time I come here, you're manifesting something. You're always manifesting something. And so as I understand it, next week you're moving down a few doors to a much bigger facility. So once again, you're creating something. What does Reverend Jeannie say? We are powerful manifestors. Powerful creators or manifestors? Aren't we powerful creators? And we really are, and that's kind of what I want to talk to you about today. You know, the way I think about it, our creative abilities and our desire to create is much more than just something that we do and we just have a tendency to want to make and do things and have things and create things. I really think it's our divine nature to do that. And when you really think about it, it's very logical. If you believe that God is the creator, and as we teach in this church that you are an individual expression of God, then what are you? Are you not a creator? You're constantly going to want to create something, to manifest something, to want to have, do, or be something. And the beautiful thing about creativity and manifesting being part of your divine nature, it's also just in the divine nature to have that desire fulfilled. In other words, if you just had to think of something and then go out and work really hard to make it happen, that would be kind of tiresome. But it's not that way. Really, we create in kind of the same way that Creator creates, effortlessly. Remember, you know, it's always been very interesting to me the way the Genesis is written. At the beginning of Genesis, it says, "Let there be light, let there be fields, let there be this, let there be that." Not, "I'm going to work really hard as God to make this happen." It's like, this would be nice, let it be. And that's mostly what we're about. It's about letting and about allowing. Not Ernest Holmes, Thoreau. No, it's not Thoreau either. I can't remember who did this quote, but Ralph Waldo Emerson. Try that. That is who it is. One of those three said, "The moment you make a decision, the whole universe conspires to make it happen." The moment you make a decision, the whole universe conspires to make it happen. So how hard can it really be to fulfill your desires and your dreams and your goals if the whole universe is working on your behalf? So that's really been the focus of my, that process of fulfillment and the universe working with you has been my focus for about 20 years now. And the way I word it, because I wrote a book called Row, Row, Row Your Boat, is this. I put it into kind of boating terminology. But to me, this whole process of manifestation is like there's this divine flow or this underlying current that's continually guiding you towards the effortless fulfillment of your heart's desires. That's what I like to say. There's a divine flow that's continually guiding you towards the effortless fulfillment of your heart's desires. The trick is just knowing how to recognize and cooperate with that flow. Now, fortunately, that's really not a very difficult thing to learn how to do because the instructions for doing that you already know by heart, which are row, row, row your boat. Gently, that's a key word, down the stream. Pay attention to that. Merrily, 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 merrily. That's an issue too. Life is but a dream. Sometimes this is not the talk I usually do, but when I joke about that, I like to say it. For 35 years, I thought the song went, "Row, row, row your boat madly up the stream. Worry, 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 worry. Life is a nightmare." That was my experience. So, but anyway, the beautiful thing about the original lyrics is that every single word in that song really stand for a spiritual principle that you need to know if you want to live a life of greater happiness, satisfaction, and ease. The first time I was here, I talked about the word row and what that means, which is simply rowing stands for all the decisions that you make and the actions that you take to fulfill a particular desire. In other words, the way I see it and the way I've experienced it is that there's this flow of guidance that comes to us that leads us to where we want to go through intuition, through the wisdom of other people, through signs and synchronicities, but you have to act on that. It opens doors for you and provides opportunities, but you act on that intuition, you act on that guidance, and every time you do, that's like a little stroke of the oar, taking you where you want to go. But the guidance is so good, and it's such a small baby step, and it's so powerful because it's guidance from the divine, that one little stroke of the oar moves you ahead in a fantastically effective and efficient way, and to the benefit of all concerned. So that's what rowing's about, and I've talked about that when I was here the first time. Today I want to talk about something different. The subject of today is the phrase in that song, "Life is but a dream." Life is but a dream. And I want to talk about how understanding that concept can really enhance your ability to live life in the flow and to fulfill your desires effortlessly. Now, when people hear life is but a dream, they usually have an instant idea of exactly what that means in the song. And we're all right. Whatever your idea about that is correct. And Trixie mentioned it right off the bat when she sang her song today. Usually when people hear dream, they say, well, the dream in that song stands for your goals, your desires, what it is that you want to see out there, and how life is wonderful and how it's easy to fulfill that. And that is what that word can stand for. But it's not what I really talk about. There's another way that people talk about the word dream, and life is but a dream, and that is they go a more esoteric route. And it's too esoteric, I think, for a book called Row, Row, Row Your Boat, so I don't go there either. And that is, all of life is an illusion. There's nothing really out here. You know, we're just manufacturing this in our minds. You know what? I think that's true, too. But again, too esoteric and too much for this little talk. And my little mind to grasp. So what I like to talk about, and what I've done in the book, I've taken the word dream to represent something that's a pretty important thing to know about manifesting what you want in life. And that is that the reality you experience in your life is pretty much just a perception of your own that's not like somebody else's. It's influenced and colored by your own personal history, by your belief system. It's highly subjective and it's highly biased. You know, so there's not a firm reality out there. Something will happen and one person will say, oh, well, that's this. And I'll say, well, no, I think it's this. Or that's horrible. No, I think it's great. So, you know, where's the reality? So it's kind of a dream. This reality we have is kind of dream-like, and that no two people see things exactly the same. And your ability to look at a situation in a particular manner does affect your ability to be in the flow or be out of the flow. Let me just, rather than ramble about that, let me read just 3 paragraphs out of here. This is how I describe it in the book. To say that life is but a dream is to say that what you consider to be reality may seem very real to you, but it may not seem as real to anyone else. This is because you instantly give meaning to every single circumstance that occurs in your life. You judge it and label it as good, bad, or indifferent. But the meaning you give to these circumstances is greatly influenced by your own personal history and belief system. Another person, looking at the same situation, may see an entirely different picture based on his or her own unique past. Like a dream, then, each person sees what he or she chooses to see and interprets his or her vision the way he or she chooses to interpret it. This phenomenon of subjective reality is called perception. Perception is highly relative and easily subject to change. If you use your perception to hastily label an occurrence as bad and then rashly act on that misinterpretation, you may miss the very opportunity that could lead you to your highest good and to the effortless fulfillment of your heart's desires. Let me give you a little example of that. I'm going to tell a story. It's a kind of a lengthy story, but it has a lot of good points to it. About, must be 3 years ago now, when we were going to go to St. Louis, 3 or 4 years ago, we were going to go visit Carol's mother in St. Louis for Thanksgiving. Now, it's a long way. It's 10 hours or 12 hours to St. Louis. 12 hours to St. Louis. And, you know, these days, I drive 12 hours all the time to go speak places. But at that time, it seemed like a long way. And I said, you know, that's a long way to go. Why don't we come up with a plan to make it really a more enjoyable trip? And we'll split the 12 hours up into little segments. What we'll do the first night is we'll just drive to Hot Springs, Arkansas, about 5 hours. The next day, we won't drive at all. We'll spend the day in Hot Springs digging for crystals, which is something we like to do in the open pit crystal mines there. Then the third day, we'll get up, and we'll have to get up really early, but then we'll go from there to St. Louis. Now, the only fly in the ointment is that we wanted to get to St. Louis in time for lunch, because south of the city there's a little old village that was created in like the 1700s or maybe even the late 1600s. Very old village that was founded by people going up the Mississippi. And there's a great restaurant there that's only open for a couple hours a day at lunch. And then the rest of the village has got like arts and crafts and stuff. But our goal was just, if we could just get to that restaurant and eat, that would be a fun thing to do. That was the plan. Okay, so we take off for Hot Springs. We have no problem getting to Hot Springs. We get there and spend the night, get up the next morning, ready to go crystal digging, and we look out the window, and it's kind of misty, rainy. You know, not pouring or anything, but just not ideal conditions, we thought. So, we're the flow masters. Let's not react hastily to this. What's the next right thing to do? Well, what would you normally do? You'd eat breakfast. And that's, let's not even think about that. Let's do what we need to do, would do, and want to do. Let's eat breakfast. So we went down and we were eating breakfast in this little diner. They had great pancakes there on this Main Street area. And we're eating away, and all of a sudden the sky just opened up and buckets of rain come down. I mean, so much rain that people get out of their seats in this restaurant. They all go over to the windows and start looking. And, have you ever seen? Okay. So we're eating our pancakes thinking, yeah, we get it. We see the flow here. It's a little literal, not what we had in mind, but obviously this is not the day to go crystal digging. So let's leave. Let's pack up our bags and just head on to St. Louis. We didn't know what else to do. We had been in Hot Springs lots of times. There wasn't other things that we needed to explore there. So we did that. We went and we checked out, and we're going down the road. And as we go, Carol looks ahead, and she sees this little strip mall, and there's a shop that sells crystals in it. Now, we knew that was there. We had never been in the shop before, but we knew the owner because we had met him at Unity of Hot Springs the year before. So Carol says, why don't we just stop and look in the window of that crystal shop? And I'm thinking, well, I don't know why would we? A, it's not open. We know what crystals look like. We got buckets full at home already, and I don't even know why we're here digging for crystals when we got so many. But, but it couldn't hurt. I mean, there's no reason not to really either. So she wanted to do that, so I said, okay, let's pull in and look. So we stopped and we pulled up and we go over and look in the windows of the shop. And you know what? No, it wasn't open. They opened like at 10, and this was like at 8 in the morning. But the owner was in there. And he looks out the window and he sees us. He didn't recognize us at first, but he's like, we're not open. But he comes over to the door and says, can I help you? And I said, oh, we were just looking through the windows. We met you, though, a year ago. Do you remember? He said, oh, yes, now I do remember you. Well, come on in. He was in there doing inventory or something. So we go in and we're looking around. He said, what's up? And we told him that we'd come to go crystal digging, but because of the rain, it wasn't raining now, but it was very wet and muddy. And so I said, we're out of town because it's not a good day for digging, crystals. And he said, what? So it's not we're leaving because it's not a good day to go digging for crystals. He said, are you kidding me? He says, I do this for a living. He says, this is the ideal conditions for digging for crystals. He said, the rain, it's not raining now, but the rain has washed the dirt off, the sun's coming out, they'll sparkle, you'll find them more than ever, and a little side benefit, everybody else thinks it's not good for digging, so you'll be the only ones out there. So we took that piece of advice, we got back in the car, we changed our clothes in a Texaco or something, and went back there and dug crystals and really had a great day of crystal digging. And got buckets full and more than we usually do. And they're in the car. Okay, now it's 4 in the afternoon. 4 in the afternoon, we've dug all the crystals we need, and we're thinking, well, so what's next? What's the next right step for us? What is the flow here? Check back into the hotel? Well, why would we? Well, there's nothing to see in Hot Springs now, and the car's already packed and ready to go. The crystals are in the car. Let's just go. We had like 4 more hours. This is the time of year when we had 4 more hours of daylight at least then. So we just started driving. The next thing we know, we're in Memphis, Tennessee. And now it's dark, and we're hungry, and we checked in. We had an interesting evening in Memphis with the Peabody Hotel and all that kind of, Beale Street. Not in the plan, but, it was a whole new adventure for us. Next morning, we get up, and we start going to St. Louis, and we realize, wow, we're going to be there in like 3 hours. Plenty of time to get to that restaurant with no hassle, no worry. Ate at the restaurant and had 2 or 3 hours left over before we needed to be at her mother's place to do the whole village, look at all the arts and crafts. And I'm a very artsy, crafty guy, so I liked it. So we look at all that. So here's the question I want to ask you. Was the rain a bad thing? I mean, we planned an outdoor activity and it rained. No, it was a blessing. Because of that rain, and because of the way we went with that and the way it shifted things, we went to Memphis. We still did what we were aiming to do, and we got to visit all the shops in that village as well as eat, and without any rushing. Who would have ever thought that? So it was not a bad thing. Now, it may sound a little bit to you like I'm saying that we had a goal in mind, which is here's our plan, and God said, I see your plan, but I want to make it much better for you, so I will make it rain. And it will be a big blessing if you can see it. I'm not really saying that. I don't believe that at all, at least about nature. But what I am saying is this. It just rained. It rained. That was what was. And it's how we responded to what was that made the whole difference. Now, you may think that was the only kind of response that we could have had. You don't know me very well, if that's what you think. In the past, I could have just said, darn, what a stupid plan. It's rained. It's all wrecked. Let's just get in the car and go. And she would have said, there's that crystal. Crystals? We know what crystals look like. It's closed. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. I just would have sped on by it. So all that would have changed. That would have been a reaction that I would have had in the past. But we didn't do that. You know, we are the flow masters, or at least we're trying to be. So flow meisters or masters, whatever. So one step at a time, we just tried to assess what's the next right thing to do. What is the guidance here? And that's what we did. We as I talked about the flow in the beginning, you know, actually that was an intuitive nudge on her part to let's stop and look in that store. Let's stop, and we followed that. A coincidence that the guy was there 2 hours before shop time's open, and doesn't usually do that. And of course, he had wisdom for us, and we were willing to listen to that wisdom and act on that. So that's what rowing is like. Just one step at a time. Let's eat breakfast. Let's check out. Look in the shop window. You get led to greater and greater good. Now, as I said, the key to that was just being open and receptive to the flow. And it leads me to a statement that I like to say a lot, because the rain could seem like a bad thing. But when you accept what is, you can look at everything as a stepping stone to your higher good, if you want it to be. And that's the real key thing I'm driving the lesson to today. Everything can be a stepping stone to your higher good if you want it to be. Now, I didn't say that everything is a stepping stone. There's a difference. I believe in free will. I don't know about you guys, but I do believe that we are being divinely directed, but we have the free will to say, I'm not listening, or forget that, or I'm going another way. And we make choices that are sometimes benign, sometimes unconstructive, and sometimes outright destructive and harmful to ourselves and others. But even when we do that, those things can still be a stepping stone to our higher good. If at any point along the way, things are struggling, we're not liking what's going on, things don't look good, if we just stop and say, you know, God, I don't know how I got here, or what's going on, was my ego involved, was I afraid, where did I go, when did I go down the wrong tributary? It doesn't matter. If you just say, God, this is where I am, and I would like a greater good to come from this, I am now open and willing and receptive to see another way, you will be guided to your good from that point. You know, it's not like God says, oh, you got yourself into I can't get you out of that one. You know, all things are possible with God. Do the best you can. If things seem a little tough, just say, well, it's raining. Just say, what should I do? It's raining. I don't know what to do. I'm not going to guess and react and go with logic and reason so much. I'm just going to stop and say, what is the next right step from here with what's going on? So everything can be a stepping stone to your higher good if you want it to be. You know, in 2001, I got laid off. After 30 years in advertising, and I was 51 years old, and I had a very high salary, and lots of other people got laid off too, and we were all pretty panicked about it. How can we get jobs at this salary? We've got big bills, and we're kind of old, and they like to hire people in their 20s, you know, newcomers into advertising are 20, not 22, 21, not 50. So we were all pretty worried about that, but you know, I was able to apply these principles and say, well, that's what is. I do not like that. I do not prefer this. But what's my next right step on this? And I'm standing here before you today saying I haven't worked in a full-time job since 2001, wrote a book, traveling about it, and doing what I love. And that's worked out. Now, again, back to that thing about God and the rain. Did God say, oh, Steve, you know, I'm going to get you laid off so that you can pursue this career and thing that you've been liking for so long and just haven't done? Well, maybe, but I really don't know. Let me tell you 3 things about this layoff situation. First of all, this is interesting in that, are any of you familiar with Reverend Christopher Ian Chenoweth? He goes around to Unities and he does prosperity and seminars, and he does powerful prayer seminars as well. Well, he had come to our church on a Sunday and went, and it was a seminar on powerful prayer, and he showed us how to pray rightly, and he was going to pray for us. And anyway, miracles were supposed to happen from all this prayer energy. So he said, make a list of the top 10 things that you want to manifest in your life. Number 1 for me was to segue out of advertising into a more spiritually based career full time. Because I had been teaching this class for 8 years, and it was really the love of my life, but I wanted to do something like that all the time. That was number 1 at the list. Got laid off 5 days later. Thanks, Chris. It works. Okay, that does seem to be like a divine answer to my manifest. But on the other hand, look at this. I had loved this spiritual teaching and way of life for so long that it was quite apparent to everybody in advertising. I had one foot in advertising and one foot out. My boss knew that, and they want you to give 110%. 100% is not good enough. I did my job fully, but at 5 o'clock I was kind of gone. They want me to think about it day and night, and I didn't. So when it comes down to choosing people to go, it's kind of a logical choice. My own behaviors and attitudes and what I was putting out there, just a logical choice for them, perhaps. And look at it this way too. The whole fact that there were layoffs happening at all was directly because of 9/11. Our major client at the time was American Airlines. We'd already lost a couple of clients, and I was still hanging in there, but they called us all down and said, American just called. They're not going to advertise for 1 year. We're not going to have that money. We cannot pay you. These people are going to have to go. So that was the ripple effect of one man's willful, free will actions forcing what he wanted in life. I'm talking about Osama bin Laden, to get what he wanted by doing something like that on the physical plane. So why did I get laid off? Because God said, oh, Steve wants a spiritual career? Or because I'm just acting like I want to be laid off? Or because I'm just the fallout from one man's really vicious actions? I don't know. And that's kind of the point. You don't need to know. Sometimes it'll be obvious to you, sometimes it won't, but you might go crazy trying to figure out, why is this happening? Why is this happening? It's really not very, I don't know that it's that detrimental to question that, but it's certainly not constructive, because you'll just stay there in the wondering and why, and the worry actually will be not constructive for you. Just accept what is. You don't have to like it. Acceptance doesn't mean liking it. Just saying this is what is. I'm not resisting it. I'm not trying to change it. I'm not asking why it is. I'm just saying this is. Now what? Now what? What can happen from here? God, I still want to go where I want. I still have these dreams and desires. I still want to be happy and fulfilled. What is my next right step? When you accept what is, everything can be a stepping stone to your higher good if you want it to be, and it will be, if you want it to be. If you are open-minded and willing to say, I'm not pointing fingers, I'm not blaming now, I'm just looking ahead, saying, God, what next? Let me tell you, end the little story today with another story. This is not a real story, it's a fable. It's about a donkey and a well and this farm, but it's a really good metaphor. Not as good as row, row, row your boat, but it really is a good metaphor for what I'm talking about today. There's a man who had a donkey that had been on their farm for years and years and years, and he kind of grew up with the donkey, really, and I'm sure it was a very useful animal for a while, but now it was very, very old. And they didn't have the heart to put it down or put it to sleep, but it had arthritis, it could hardly move, it hurt, you could tell it was in pain and kind of when it walked around kind of crippled. It had cataracts or whatever donkeys get, it really was blind, it really couldn't see, and it would just kind of stumble around the farm. Well, one day the farmer, the rancher I guess would be, sitting out on his front of his veranda or his porch on the ranch house, and he looks out and he sees the old donkey just kind of blindly walking along, across the grounds, and they had a really low well that was been dried up for years, but the wall was kind of short, made out of stones, and they hadn't pulled water out of there for years, and all the woodwork was even gone. It was really just a hole in the ground. And this old donkey is walking along, can't see, runs into that thing, and he's just so blind, he just head first right down the well. So this is this guy's pet, practically, so he's really horrified, and he runs out there and runs to the well and looks down it, and it's so deep, he can't see a thing. And he listens for sounds of suffering, and he hears absolutely nothing. And he listens, and he looks, and he listens, nothing. So he thinks, you know what? Maybe this was a blessing. That poor old donkey was crippled, he couldn't see, and he's had an instant demise. He's gone. He's just laying down there. Now, there's no way to really get down there, get an animal like that out. They don't have the equipment, and so he just said, we don't use this well. I'm sorry it was even a dangerous place in the first place. Why don't I call my friends over? We'll have a great memorial service for, the donkey, and we'll fill it in. This will be his final resting place. And that's what they did. Got some other farmer friends over. They must have had to bring dirt with them, but they brought shovels, and they come over. They do a nice service for, Dickie the donkey, whatever his name is. And then they started filling it in. Now, go with me visually down to the bottom of the well. Where the donkey is, fine. See, that well was dried up, but it had maybe 4 or 5 feet of mud still in the bottom of it. Just no water you could ever draw up. And he had somehow just gone straight into it with his feet and it just stuck in the mud. Now, since he really wasn't injured, and because he was very startled and because he couldn't see, he had no reason to vocalize anything or whatever they do, donkeys, bray. I don't know how to do bray. He was just standing there like, what happened? Where am I? What's the next thing poor old donkey knows? Dirt on his head, dirt on his back, dirt coming down on him. And this more and more dirt and more and more dirt and more and more dirt. And he's coming to his senses and like, I don't think donkeys have intuition, but they've got survival instinct, as we do as well. And he just, instinctually just pulled one foot out of that mud, stepped on that dry dirt. Okay, it feels a little better. More dirt, more dirt. More and more dirt keeps coming, and all he does is keep eventually taking a step up on it, taking a step up. So what happens after a long period of hours, probably filling that in, what do the farmers and ranchers see? Here he comes, rising out of the well. So, the moral of the story is what I said a while ago. Everything can be a stepping stone to your higher good if you want it to be. Even when people are throwing dirt on you, you can use that if you're willing to. But as people, we don't necessarily do that. The donkey had sense to just take the next right step. But a lot of times we get stuck in the mud, we fall down a hole, we're blind, we don't know what direction we're going in, and the world just kicks us when we're down and throws dirt on us and more dirt. But a lot of times we just stay in that dirt. We just say, oh, they're throwing more dirt on me. Woe is me. The world is horrible. Why is the universe doing it? Why is it? And we just stay down there until we get covered up to our necks. Don't do that. Be as like the wise, old, blind, crippled donkey. Just take the next right step. Be willing to see that this can be a stepping stone to my higher good if I want it to be. I don't know how it could possibly be. This looks really horrible. But if you just stay in that judgment and that blame and that worry and that fear, you will not be open-minded enough or open-hearted enough to get that wisdom as to what to do next. So everything can be a stepping stone to your higher good. If, back to the dream thing, you are willing to see it that way. If you are willing to dream a different dream, or more accurately, everything can be a stepping stone to your higher good if you're willing to wake up from your dream and see the reality of God's goodness continually at work in your life and continually guiding you towards the effortless fulfillment of your desires.